Book Review: Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. Few books in history manage to be both deeply funny and profoundly moving, both a satire of human foolishness and a celebration of the human spirit. Miguel de Cervantes' Don Quixote, first published in two parts in 1605 and 1615, is one of those rare works. Often hailed as the first modern novel, it tells the story of Alonso Quixote, a middle-aged Spaniard who reads so many chivalric romances that he loses his grip on reality. Reinventing himself as Don Quixote de la Mancha, he sets off with his loyal squire Sancho Panza to revive the age of knights, quests, and noble honor, a story of a dreamer. At its core, Don Quixote is about a man who refuses to accept life as it is. Quixote, dissatisfied with the mundane world, dives headfirst into stories of knights slaying giants, rescuing damsels, and defending honor. But instead of merely escaping into fantasy, he decides to live it. He renames himself Don Quixote, fashions a helmet out of a barber's basin, mounts his skinny horse Rocinante, and recruits Sancho, a simple farmer with common sense and a hungry stomach. Their journeys are filled with comic encounters. Don Quixote mistakes windmills for giants and charges at them, only to be thrown to the ground. He fights wineskins believing they are enemies. He rescues peasants who never asked for saving. To most characters they meet, he is a lunatic. But through the eyes of the reader, he is more than just mad. He is a man consumed by belief in ideals that the world has abandoned. Humor with a purpose. One of Cervantes' greatest triumphs is the book's humor. The slapstick comedy of Don Quixote's blunders, the witty banter between Quixote and Sancho, and the absurdity of applying medieval codes of chivalry to 17th century Spain all create scenes that remain funny even 4 centuries later. But the humor is never shallow. Every comic misstep carries a sting of truth. Cervantes uses laughter to hold a mirror up to society. He mocks blind idealism, yes, but he also mocks a cynical world that has no room for it. We laugh at Don Quixote charging at windmills, but part of us admires his courage to tilt at giants when everyone else has accepted life's limitations. Sancho Panza, the voice of reality. Sancho Panza is one of the most endearing sidekicks in literature. While Don Quixote spouts lofty rhetoric about honor and destiny, Sancho talks about food, money, and practical matters. He is grounded, skeptical, and often bewildered by his master's antics. And yet, despite seeing Quixote's madness clearly, Sancho remains loyal. This loyalty reveals something powerful. Even the most practical among us can be moved by another person's dreams. Over time, Sancho himself begins to believe, just a little, in Quixote's vision. His earthy proverbs and plain wisdom balance the knight's lofty speeches, but his companionship also validates Quixote's quest. Without Sancho, Quixote would be merely a fool. With him, he becomes a fool worth following. Themes that endure. Part of why Don Quixote has lasted is that its themes are universal. Every reader can see a piece of themselves in the story. Idealism versus reality. Don Quixote lives in a world of ideals that clash with reality. Who hasn't struggled between lofty dreams and the demands of everyday life? The power of stories. Cervantes shows how literature shapes us. Quixote is consumed by books, for better and for worse. It raises the question, how much of who we are comes from the stories we believe? Dignity in madness. While Quixote is mocked, he never gives up his sense of purpose. In that, there is dignity. Sometimes being mad enough to believe in something larger than yourself is the only way to change the world. Friendship and loyalty. At its heart, the book is also about companionship. The relationship between Quixote and Sancho reminds us that even the wildest dreamer needs someone by their side. Every reader can see a piece of themselves in the story. Cervantes' narrative innovation. Cervantes didn't just write a funny story, he reinvented storytelling. Don Quixote is often called the first modern novel because of its complexity. Cervantes mixes realism with fantasy, uses multiple narrators, plays with the idea of unreliable storytelling, and even references himself as the editor of the tale. He also captures a wide slice of society: peasants, innkeepers, priests, noblemen, criminals. Through Quixote's travels, we get a vivid portrait of Spain during Cervantes' time, from its rigid class structures to its religious debates. Reading experience. Modern readers often find Don Quixote long and meandering, and it is. The book spans more than 900 pages in most editions, with side stories, tangents, and episodic adventures. But the length is also part of its charm. You don't just read Don Quixote's story, you live with him, endure his failures, smile at his speeches, and sometimes ache for his pain. One of the most poignant moments comes near the end, when Don Quixote renounces his knightly identity and dies as Alonso Quixote, sane but broken. After hundreds of pages of madness, his return to reality feels tragic. The world never accepted his dreams, and in the end, he could not sustain them. It is a reminder of how unforgiving reality can be, and how much we need dreamers like Quixote, even if they fail. Why it still matters. Why should we, in the 21st century, read a book written over 400 years ago about a delusional knight? Because Don Quixote speaks to something timeless, the tension between the world as it is and the world as it could be. Every generation has its windmills, challenges that seem too big, too foolish, or too impractical to fight. Every generation also has its Quixotes, people who dare to fight them anyway. Whether it's social reformers, inventors, artists, or everyday dreamers, the spirit of Don Quixote lives on in anyone who refuses to accept life at face value. Cervantes reminds us that while reality often crushes idealism, the attempt to live by higher values is itself noble. Quixote may not have changed the world, but he changed the way we see it. Final thoughts reading. Don Quixote is like sitting down with a wise old friend who tells long, winding stories, sometimes hilarious, sometimes heartbreaking, always meaningful. In the end, Don Quixote is more than just the first modern novel. It is a timeless reminder that while the world may call dreamers foolish, they are the ones who keep hope alive. And perhaps that is the truest kind of sanity.